Amir. The Maccabiah Games are finally here. COVID, they say, might be gone. I'm not so sure. What do you say to this amazing day where you've had thousands of people already enter Israel for these games?
Well, it's difficult for me to hide my huge excitement. It's a big day for us. It's happening. I remind us all that the Maccabiah was postponed because the Olympics were postponed. And we always do the Maccabiah 1 year after the Olympics to allow all the Israeli, American, Canadian, and other athletes that participate in the Olympics to come also to the Maccabiah. So it's been 5 years since the last Maccabiah, and this Maccabiah is the largest ever. Over 10,000 athletes. Just for comparison, in Tokyo there were 11,000 athletes, so we run a 90% Olympics. Obviously, the sporting level is very different, but the logistical, security, and health operations needed here are the same. And it's interesting to say that we know in history that cities host the Olympics at best, like Paris and London, once every 30 years. We are having the Maccabiah here every 4 years. Everything starts here in Kfar Maccabiah, the beating heart of the Maccabi movement. The Maccabi movement is the largest Jewish organization with close to 500,000 members in more than 60 countries. And it all combines together members of the Jewish faith who like sports and who are dealing with sports on an amateur basis. And for them and for us, the main event, the one thing that everybody is waiting for, is the Maccabiah Games here in Israel.
If you could share a little bit about the whole Kfar Maccabiah, the village itself, when it began, and the vision. I mean, there's a hotel associated, there's a sporting facility associated here.
Yeah, actually, in a panoramic view, this is the beating heart, the Maccabi House, which was just opened a few months ago. This is where Maccabi World Union, Maccabi Israel, and the newly opened Jewish Sport Museum are located. What you can see here is our conference center, the hotel. On one side we have the business suites, on the other side the place where the groups that the Jewish youngsters group that we bring for all over the world, this is where they're staying. We have 3 event halls. We have a country club, a sports club, which is the biggest in Israel. All in all, this is a 20-acre great facility for everything. But what's unique about it is that it's not just a facility, a tourist facility, a sports facility. This is home. This is home for 500,000 Jews who are engaged with Maccabi groups all over the world. They know the place, they have been here, and it's alive. Maccabi is not a business. Maccabi is something that comes from the heart. We are a non-profit. We are a movement that puts first healthy lifestyle, community, and love for Israel. The Maccabiah is not concentrated in one place. The Kfar Maccabiah is obviously somewhat like the Olympic Village, but the sporting events are happening all over Israel. The main centers are Haifa, where we're going to have the Youth Maccabiah, 2,500 athletes from 60 countries between the age of 15 to 18 that are not just to compete in sports, but they're also going to have a very thorough educational program. So for us, it's a great opportunity to connect them to the Maccabi movement, to its values, to their Judaism, to their connection with Israeli peers who are going to be there as well. So that's happening in Haifa. We have a lot of activities in Jerusalem. We have a lot of activities in the Tel Aviv area and in Netanya.
How are the youth chosen?
Based on their athletic skills.
But who decides?
There is tryouts. all over the States, all over Canada, where Jewish teens knows about the Maccabiah, knows about the dates, they come, they show what they know, either becoming a member of the ice hockey team or compete in athletics or in swimming, and the best are coming. In other countries, to be honest, not everybody is being judged by their level, because if we have delegations from Cuba, from Venezuela, or from the Ukraine, the most important thing is participation. For us, our line is, if you're Jewish, if you define yourself as Jewish and you want to be here, you're not stopped.
Since you
You're welcome.
brought up Ukraine, are there participants from Ukraine?
There is a significant delegation from Ukraine, and as a matter of fact, Maccabi Europe, the Association of Maccabi Clubs in Europe, has been working under the radar for several months to help Ukrainian Maccabi members who needed to participate in the Maccabiah to come out safely out of the Ukraine. They came to Israel several months ago. We are taking care of everything they need so they can have a clear mind, train and prepare for the Maccabiah. And they're going to have a significant delegation, and I'm sure the cheers that they're going to get in the opening ceremony will be second.
Amir Gisson is incoming CEO of Maccabi World Union, the largest sporting event this year world over. By any means, a sporting event of this nature is a tremendous job. It's huge. The numbers have been about 10,000. Where are we today in terms of who's coming?
Well, the Maccabiah is most probably the most important event in the Jewish calendar, at least for us, in terms of size of participants. Not only are we going to have 10,000 athletes, which is almost like the amount of athletes that compete in the Tokyo Olympics, which had 11,000, so we run a 90% Olympic Games. Many people are coming to Israel with them, especially after 3 years of Corona, where Jews from all over the world could not visit their second home in Israel. All of a sudden, all this mass of visitors from the Jewish world are going to join us, and this is quite an exciting event. We're all looking forward to it. As you can imagine, this is a great logistical challenge. The opening ceremony is just 10 days away, and we can't wait.
The breakdown of the people that are participating.
So, out of the 10,000 athletes, we have around 3,000 from Israel. The largest delegation we have from abroad is obviously the US delegation. It's worth mentioning that the US delegation to the Maccabiah, which is 1,400 athletes, is larger than the US delegation to the Tokyo Olympics. It's a huge delegation. The second largest delegation is Argentina with 800 participants, and we all know, bearing in mind the difficulties, the economic difficulties in Argentina those days, the fact that so many people are coming just demonstrates the commitment of this community to Israel, to Maccabi, and to the Maccabiah Games. The Canadian delegation is the third largest, and we have many large delegations and also many small delegations, all in all over 60 delegations, also from places like Cuba, Venezuela, and obviously Ukraine, no less important.
Joseph Yukutieli was only 15 years old when he came up with the concept for the Maccabiah Games, and that was really an offshoot of what was happening in Stockholm in the Olympics at that time, 1912. What's happened since? Why was it actually created?
So we're talking about an event that happened 90 years ago. The first Maccabiah happened 90 years ago. It never stopped. The only time where it was stopping is during the events of Second World War and the Holocaust. I think that the Jewish people at that time, with their difficult history, with anti-Semitism, had needed a change of direction. And the concept of trying to develop a sports culture and a healthy mind in a healthy body approach has its followers, and it has began to develop from 90 years ago until today. And today we see the strength of this concept by the fact that sports in general, but also among the Jewish people, is a uniting force. Many times in the Jewish world we see dividing forces, but Maccabi and sports is a uniting force. And to be or to experience personally the opening ceremony of the Maccabiah with 40,000 people in the stadium celebrating their Judaism and their connection to Israel and sports, I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Many have written about the fact that in the early days, there were Jews that were trying to immigrate. And some of those that participated in sports used the opportunity because the British authorities were not allowing them to come to Israel. Can you share anything about that period?
Yeah. Before the establishment of the State of Israel, Jews from all over the world have looked for ways to leave the places where they were at and to come to Israel as Zionists. Some of them were doing it by conviction. Some of them just needed to run away from oppressive regimes and countries and places. And we have numerous stories of people that used their participation in the Maccabiah as a way to get to Israel. And until today, they're part of the movement history. They're part of our activities. And we do our utmost to remember all the Maccabi members who perished in the Holocaust and all those who managed to run away with the help of Maccabi through sports and got to Israel. And many of those stories are part of the new World Jewish Sport Museum, which we're about to open here in this building in Kfar Maccabiah immediately after the Games.
It begs the question of whether some of these young athletes are inspired to live in Israel. Do you see any of them coming to stay?
Certainly. In every Maccabiah, at any time, you have a significant group of athletes from many countries that, following the Maccabiah, make the choice of remaining in Israel and making Aliyah. I think the most famous one is Tal Brody, one of the basketball legends of the State of Israel, a name everybody in Israel and probably in the United States know, a person that came to play with the American team to the Maccabiah, and after this experience have chosen to give up his promised career in the NBA and come to play in Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel. And he was the captain of Maccabi Tel Aviv when, for the first time in history, they won the championship of European basketball.
Great challenges are around creating, putting together some kind of event of this enormity. It's huge. Tell me a little bit about the logistics of how long it takes to put this together. It only happens every 4 years. Mm-hmm.
So the truth of the matter is that the work on the next Maccabiah starts one day after the current Maccabiah is over. To operate a sporting event with 10,000 athletes is a huge logistical challenge. We're talking about, just as an example, 2 million water bottles that needs to be, get to their places every day. We have 400 workers in the Maccabiah, from referees in sporting events through security, health, transportation, logistics in general. A great challenge, but the beauty of it is that we have a very dedicated team that runs together. This is the third Maccabiah that they're working together. The top echelon of the Maccabiah is a team that know each other very well, and they don't look at doing the Maccabiah as a job. It's not a job for them. It's their family, it's their home, There's something they feel very strongly and very ideologically about, and they all graduate of the Maccabi movement.
How many people work full-time after the events are over?
Well, the core team of the Maccabiah between the games is between 10 and 20 people, the leaders of the operation, and as we come closer to the event, we bring in more and more people until we get to the number of 400 people that operates the Maccabiah. Some of them are here in Kfar Maccabiah in the headquarters, some of them in the different hotels and sporting events. And this is a huge operation, not something that you see in Israel every day.
Are there any new sports events that are starting this year?
Yes, well, we have the paddle, a new sports that is like a very hectic combination of tennis and squash. We have several swimming events, which are exhibition events. Swimming is certainly not a new sport, but we will see many Olympic medalists, gold Olympic medalists participating from the US together with Israeli leading swimmers. And I think all in all, it will be very interesting. One thing worth mentioning, the one sport where I believe the level of the teams is highest comparing to the world is ice hockey. That's going to be one of the most popular events that we're going to run in the Maccabiah. It's going to happen in the Teddy Arena in Jerusalem. And we expect a full house of over 10,000 spectators.
Just the opening and closing is a full-time operation. Can you share a little bit of what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, the truth of the matter is that we are engaged for quite a while now with the message that we got from the White House that in the incoming visit of President Biden to Israel, which happens to be at the same time, they are considering different alternatives of connecting with the Maccabiah that obviously create, on one hand, quite a logistical challenge for us. On the other hand, we see that as a great vote of confidence, and we really look forward to hear and see whether it will happen and what will be the connection. We're hopeful that will be a significant involvement of the White House and the President in the Maccabiah. And I will just say that this is the ultimate vote of respect and recognition to the importance of the Maccabi movement and the Maccabiah in the life of the Jewish people.
How does it change the operations if President Biden says today he is coming?
Well, I will not go into details. I'll just say that anything which is connected to security and transportation will have to be totally revised. And for instance, just to bring the athletes to Jerusalem from the many hotels there around Israel, which there are, we're talking about over 200 buses. We need to make sure that those buses will not be late to the ceremony because the athletes need to participate in the delegation parade. So they will obviously need to come earlier, because Jerusalem is not going to be an easy place to navigate that day.
The games are far from an idea of just coming to Israel. It goes beyond. You have educational components. Can you take me through the day in the life of an athlete coming, whether it's from the United States, Canada, or around the world?
Maccabi is not an organization, in the world I mean, not an organization of professional athletes. Most of Maccabi members just enjoy the fact that they can do sports in a Jewish environment. Many of them are unaffiliated. They're not part of the Jewish organized community. That is their way to remain Jewish and to be active in a Jewish environment. They are important to us. We doing our utmost to develop their relationship with Israel through the Maccabi movement. We encourage them to be a part of the activities of the Jewish communities all around the world. And we're trying very hard to make sure that it will not be just the Maccabiah for 2 weeks and then 4 years of anticipation to the next event.
Politics plays a very vital role in Israel. Can the Maccabiah Games stay away from the politics when it comes to the sporting events and everything that surrounds what Maccabiah is supposed to stand for?
We were very successful with keeping politics out until now, and there's no reason why we will not continue to be successful. I have to say that all parties and all governments always supported the Maccabiah, because everybody understands that this is probably one of the most effective tools to maintain the special relationship between Israel and Jewish communities all over the world.
There's a noticeable increase of Jewish names within the Olympics. Over the years, you've had some of the very high-profile players come. Who's attending this year?
Well, this year we have several Olympic gold medalists from the United States. I'll just mention the few, like Lenny Kreiselberg and Jason Isaac. And the beauty about the Maccabiah is that we're not playing the stars game. The beauty of the Maccabiah is the fact that everybody can take part, everybody can participate, everybody is doing their utmost, but it's not just a sporting experience, it's an emotional experience of all the Jewish people coming together in Israel.
You mentioned the opening of the museum. When is it slotted to do so, and can we get a peek?
Yeah, certainly. I'll be very happy to take you around. So we are at the World Jewish Sport Museum. It is not open yet to the public. It will be open after the Maccabiah. And just to give you a little bit of what is it, the World Jewish Sport Museum, I want to tell you one story. What you can see here is a sword, a fencing sword. And it's actually a tale of two swords. So it was in 1895 where modern anti-Semitism was created or was born. And that was in a ceremony in the French army where Alfred Dreyfus was blamed and dismissed from the French army in contempt. And that day, they actually broke his sword. That was the ceremony. And we all know the stories of how that event influenced Theodor Herzl and how that pushed forward the creation of Zionism and of the State of Israel. What most people don't know is that by miraculous coincidence, the same day that in 1895, the first ever Maccabi club was established. It happened in Istanbul, and it was a fencing club. So the same day where one sword was broken, another sword started a tradition that goes for more than 125 years of Jewish sports, Jews standing for themselves. And what you can see here is the original sword and fence that was owned by one of the founders of the club, and his grandson have actually contributed that historic piece to this museum. So Maccabi Istanbul of fencing, 1895, the beginning of Jews standing for themselves through sports. What you can see here is the famous book of Hakoach Vienna, one of the first Jewish sports club in the world. Their soccer team have won the championship of Austria in the beginning of the 19th century, and we received as a donation the golden book of Hakoach Vienna, where you have the stories inside those pages. You have the stories of all the great athletes that played in the club. Many of them have perished in the Holocaust.
Am I looking at you? Looks like magnificent medals.
Well, we call it the waterfall of medals. Medals from tens of
Maccabiah games, regional games, and Maccabi competitions of the last 100 years. The museum is built chronologically, and it's no surprise that there is a hard stop to the track and field and an empty wall, because that is the years of the Holocaust, where obviously Maccabiahs didn't take place and were postponed. So after the Holocaust and the War of Independence and the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, and after a very long stop of the Maccabees, the third Maccabiah took place in Israel in 1950. That was a small, modest event, but with a tremendous strength and symbolism to the Jewish people. The recreation of the Maccabeot tradition in the State of Israel. And among the participants was my father. That was 70 years ago. He was young. He was playing in the Israeli team, the Maccabiah team, in field hockey. That's the stick he was using. Out of the 11 fielders in this team, 6 were from my family, and they won the gold medals, beating India in the finals. So
Your
for me,
personal pride.
yes, my personal pride. So this is where the museum tour ends, with a creation very close to reality of the opening ceremony of the Maccabiah, which is going to actually take place in Jerusalem shortly. The groups that will be here will experience the lights and sounds and the atmosphere, and they'll see on the huge screen the greatest stories of Jewish athletes from Israel and from all around the world. We would like to create this experience for them, even if they can't be at the opening ceremony, which is going to be, I believe, a very moving event with many dignitaries, and we're actually very much looking forward to it.
Amir, you are taking up the reins of running this big operation. What's your vision the next few years?
I'm a branding guy. I come from the field of branding. Many times there is a feel that we don't own our brand. Everybody heard about Maccabi. Maccabi is Jewish sports. But not many knows that Maccabi World Union is behind Maccabi organization and the Maccabiah Games. Our message of unity to the Jewish people need to be heard in a stronger way. We are in a position to cooperate with many international sports organizations, from the Bundesliga through the NBA. That's my vision. This is where I'm going. I want to put Maccabi World Union in its rightful place as a world leading sports organization, both in terms of numbers and in terms of relations and connections. And this is where I want to take this organization. And obviously, the Maccabiah Games is a great springboard to start this journey.
Amir Gisson, incoming CEO of Maccabi World Union, thanks so much for the interview and for your time. Best of luck on the exciting Maccabiah Games, and we'll be following what happens over the Maccabiah week.
Thank you, Felice.
What brings you to Maccabiah 2021?
Take part in an amazing competition with Jews from all over the world, and I'm here to win gold.
What athletic prowess do you have?
I'm a professional squash player, and I was captain of Cornell University's varsity squash team.
First time in Israel?
4th time.
Nice. Were you at the Maccabiah Games before?
I was in Maccabi Games in 2013. I played the junior squash tournament.
Yeah, I'm here to also win a gold. I've been playing padel for the last couple of years. I'm a former tennis player, and so I'm excited to be here and try and bring it home for the USA.
Have you been to Israel before?
I've been to Israel 3 times. Yeah, this will be my 3rd time.
And first time to Maccabiah, or?
I played, 2010, the juniors. I played tennis back in Baltimore, so it's been a while, but excited to be here for the World Games.
I'm Sophie, I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona, and I go to the University of Colorado. And I'm at the Maccabi Games to compete against other Jewish athletes and to meet a lot of people from around the world.
Have you ever been to Israel?
I've never been to Israel, this is my first time.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Fite. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I play at Franklin and Marshall College, and I'm playing in the Maccabiah games just so I can play against really good Jewish student athletes and meet a bunch of people from all over. And this is my second time in Israel. I was here when I was really young. So yeah, I'm excited.